I guess the big thing is how you take data, which is then you tell a story and you visualize it, and boom, it becomes the most interesting thing in the world.
Yeah, I mean, it's just how you can then run with things. And I think that's what Wikidata sort of is really powerful for, is just surfacing data, showing it in a different context, but linking it all up with other really good complementary data sets. And you're able to download that data in all different formats. You're able to visualize that linked data in all different formats. And you can really play with and build quite bespoke queries that get to the heart of what you want to know. And what's really interesting is that since we've done this website, which we only sort of like launched in September last year, and the paint was still drying on it, we were still trying to get it fixed up for Emma doing her final presentation on her work. But there was another project going on at the same time called Mapping the Scottish Reformation. And this is a database of Scotland's clergy around the time of the Scottish Reformation. And what they're trying to do is they want to plot how Scottish clergymen and ministers in the 1560 to 1689 period take all these records of how these ministers and clergy were, where they lived and worked in Scotland. They want to plot them on a map and showcase all these historical records and link it all up. And they saw the work we were doing on the witches, and they said, okay, we're interested in doing something very, very similar. We want people to engage with this data. It's part of our remit, part of our project. And a lot of the ministers that we're trying to create linked data, open data for, already exists now in Wikidata because of the Witches Project, because some of these clergy were involved in the witch trials. So they're interested in doing something very similar. So we're trying to link it all up. So all these ministers that we have quite a lot of rich work-related records about and biographical records about, we're going to link that up with all the information that's already in Wikidata from the Survey of Scottish Witchcraft data, and see if we can't explore this period of the 16th and 17th century that bit more in depth and allow people to engage with it through building these read-write interfaces that are basically Wikidata driven.
So where are you in this project? Like, how far are you along the process of doing this?
Well, I've sort of had a number of discussions with them. They did a seminar last semester before lockdown, and we were working with Christopher Langley and Mickey Brock, who are involved in the project. And we talked to them about what was involved in creating the Witches website and how they could do something similar with the creating items of data for each minister. And Chris Langley just ran with it. He just sort of sat down and taught himself how to work with OpenRefine in the space of about an evening, which is, as you know, no mean feat. OpenRefine is a really powerful open source software for processing and reconciling data with Wikidata. And it has this Wikidata plugin that's really, really useful for exporting data that's been reconciled into Wikidata. And so he taught himself that, and he just bounced a few questions off myself and Navino Evans and Martin Poulter in Oxford. And the stage they're at now is they're looking for a home. They're looking for someone that can do the body of work that Emma did, our student intern. And they're looking for, what it would cost to set up a website like our Witches website to host those visualizations. But they're wanting to go a step further. they want to have a read-write sort of interface so that anyone can ask questions of their data and create bespoke Sparkle queries. So we're kind of trying to work out how that would work in practice and whether we can get funding and who would sit down and do the actual work. So we're having those discussions today, basically, because Chris Langley has only asked me about this on Friday, about whether if they did get the funding, someone at the university could do this work for them and work with them on it, and what it would take to create a website like our Witches website, but have an extra layer on top so that people could create relatively bespoke Sparkle queries. Which I think is definitely possible, but it's just finding the person and what it would take funding-wise to do that. But again, it's the idea of like,
and I guess it's quite. Go ahead.
Building from what happened last time and improving on that further.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the impact of doing a project like that, and you never know where it will lead and who it will inspire and what other work will come out of it. So again, it's quite inspiring. And are there any special projects that you want to share with the students that are happening now at the University of Edinburgh in relation to Wikidata? We're
working with a database assistant called Kat Breen. Catherine Breen, and she's been seconded to she's a PhD student, and she's working on the Tower Block archive at the University of Edinburgh, which is a Heritage Lottery funded project to build a searchable database of around 4,000 images of every multi-story social housing development in the UK in the post-war period. So there's photographs of all these social housing, many of which no longer exist anymore. So what we've been doing with Kat is we want to take the information and the images, and we want the images to be stored on Wikipedia's sister project, Wikimedia Commons, as open licensed images. But we also want Wikidata items created for each of the social housing developments, because this information is already stored in a sort of Excel sheet. And all we have to do is map the information that they've got in their Excel spreadsheet and the column headings that they're using, and just map those across to what we would need for Wikimedia Commons, and what we would need to Wikidata. And what we call that a metadata crosswalk, just mapping what, for example, local housing authority, which local housing authority commissioned that social housing development. So that might be one column, and just mapping what that would be called in Wikidata and what that would be called as a field in Wikimedia Commons, and just arranging bulk uploads. So we're starting off with uploading housing development pictures to Wikimedia Commons, but we'll upload each data item about each social housing project into Wikidata and link it all up. And essentially we could map that project as well and have an interactive mapping website for the Tower Block archive as well. And then once we've done it for Scotland, we can run it and we've worked out a workflow and done the whole of Scotland, then we can do the whole of England next as well, all their social housing images and data items since the Second World War.
It's amazing. Wow, again, thank you so much for sharing all these wonderful projects with the students. I hope this has been inspiring. And as always, when we have guest lectures, I'm inviting the students to ask you questions if they do. And if they do, I'll forward it and answer, and I'll forward it to them. And on that optimistic note, keep up the good work. Thank you so much for joining us in these crazy, crazy COVID COVID-19 times.
Yeah, that's.
And
I mean,
yeah,
it is unprecedented. That's a word being overused, but we are in sort of uncharted waters with this. And so a number of us at Wikimedia UK are looking at how Wikipedia and Wikidata can support efforts to work on improving health information. And so that's something we're also pitching as well at the university. We're looking at data-driven solutions about how the Wikimedia projects and Wikidata can support combat fake news, combat misinformation, and support the data-driven analysis of how COVID-19 is happening in real terms in the Scottish context. And that's something we're sort of like looking to support as we go forward. But we've yet to agree on a methodology of that just now. It's just something we would like to do to support the efforts. But yeah, strange.
Yeah, it's really interesting how many. It's very strange times, and yeah, many academics are looking for ways to contribute. I actually, again, I look forward to seeing what you do. It's really interesting, always following the news from Edinburgh. So thanks again for doing this work and being the Wikimedian-in-Residence at that university. I'm really looking forward to seeing many, many more like you. I mean, the role, not like you specifically. There's only one you, but I'm hoping to see more Wikipedian-in-Residence in other educational institutions in the world. I think it's a must. I know we now have one more at least in the UK with Andy Mabbott, right? I'm not sure where he is, but I know he's now a Wikimedian-in-Residence.
Yeah, he's at Coventry University now. So yeah, he's their resident Wikimedian. So yeah, we're looking. We think that this is a really interesting space for universities to be working in supporting data literacy and data skills. And this is something the University of Edinburgh are really keen to sort of prioritize, because they've been commissioned with, supporting Scotland's digital economy going forward and delivering a data literate workforce over the next 10 years. And working with real world data sets and Wikidata is hopefully going to play a huge part of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm hoping, more institutions understand that it's their job to do it, to basically teach the next generations how to be data literate, how to engage properly with data, especially in the age of fake news, as you mentioned. So it is going to be a very interesting space to follow, hopefully not just in the UK, but in other places in the world as well. And yeah, and so your work is really paving the way to that. So again, thank you, and thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
No, thank you. I'm sort of really interested to hear more about your Wikidata course and how it goes. Be great to sort of get some more Wikidata courses, programs in the UK and everywhere else, really.
Yeah, it's a start. All of us. There's a bunch of us doing educational related work in various places in the world. There's a big hub, UK, in Brazil, in the US, but it's really just the beginning. So hopefully the work that all of us are doing and our students are going to be the ones to really help that spread and be the ones to showcase the power of Wikidata in all of that crazy and how we can make a positive impact on the reality that we all live in. So again, thank you, and hopefully we'll see each other in a real life conference sometime soon.
Yeah, that'd be great.